Thank you, sir, and welcome to LIBA. I request you to take the dais.
I'd like to start by saying it's fantastic to be here. I'm an alumnus of Loyola myself, and I remember walking down and playing and enjoying myself in the fields of Loyola, Bertram Hall, the tennis tournament, etc. in 1979, 78, 79. So the idea is that I've been here, 78 as a student, and at that point of time, I thought a lot of things. I thought I would be a big doctor. I thought I would be a lot of things. I never thought I would be a chief guest in Loyola itself or a keynote address speaker. It's lovely to be back at an alumnus, short as it might be, because Madras Medical College was then my alumnus for 10 years. So the first thing I wanted to tell you was I called my entire team yesterday and said, what do you want me to talk to the youngsters about? And they said, sir, please do not go with a planned presentation. My original thing was I thought I'd give you a nice PowerPoint, the standard stuff. And quite a few of my ideators said, so don't do that. Just go and open yourself out to them. Just be yourself because they're the kids. As far as I'm concerned, my son and daughter are older than most of the it's like breakfast with my kids talking to you and just opening out. I feel that I will probably benefit you guys more that way than if I talk something from principles of management, etc. You get enough of that stuff in the books, and you don't read that anyway. So, we doctors are busy a lot. First thing I want to tell you is relax. Above all, I don't believe in wasting a minute. If a couple of hundred of you are spending 30, 40 minutes listening to me, that means in my mind it's 1,000 minutes, man-minutes. So we can't afford to waste any time. All right, so we doctors we're constantly aware of the complexities of time. Indeed, as I was coming today to the lecture, there was VUCA, all VUCA happened to me. Volatility is a patient who came in at 3 a.m. who needed an urgent surgery. Uncertainty, you don't know what's going to happen to the patient. Complexity, a patient's family is very personally known to me, wanted me to operate, but I have to be here as well. So who's Nandita? I was speaking to this Nandita and saying, I'm coming. And I was actually butting onto the patient's relatives at that time and trying to get instructions from her. Complexity. People don't forgive you. Nobody will forgive you if you're not there for an operation, etc. And then, you have to, there's the ambiguity. I was talking, should I just ask him to get some other speaker? Should I, continue? And fortunately, I needed to solve this VUCA situation. So I rushed in. Fortunately, patient was all ready. I managed to operate. I finished the surgery while Nandita was thinking I was on the road. And I just about managed to screech to a halt. And this, I must tell you, happens almost every day in our lives. And that's why we doctors tend to live on an average 15 to 20 years shorter than, it's true. We make other people live longer and we live much, much shorter lifestyles. However, and this I tell my children who are both training to be surgeons, it might be a shorter life, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Whatever people think of you, it's still worth it. And I always say, that's a carry-home message. And when I finish, I'll give you 10 or 12 carry-home messages which I want all of you to carry home. And one is, live life in a way that makes sense to you. It's your life. It's the way you want to do it. It's a way, and I'll come to that in a minute. So, I'm a gastroenterologist, so I tend to see people with abdominal pain. We operate laparoscopically. So because we see 100 patients a day, all my nurses are trained in the outpatients to strip people gently and give them a thin, transparent gown with which they'll be lying down. So I always say the joke about this guy who came in with a headache. And they said, no, you have to strip. Dr. Rajkumar will only see you strip. No, I got a headache. No, Dr. Rajkumar will only see you that way. So boom, though he's got a headache, he's protesting, he's stripped down to this transparent gown and he's lying down waiting for me to see him. And then through a little chink in the curtains, there's curtains, he catches the eye, fortunately only the eye, of another guy who's lying down in the next compartment. He sees him, he says, Naparba, Talavaliyoda Vanda, I don't know how many of you follow Tamil. Talavaliyoda Vanda, strip pantanga. I came with a headache and these guys stripped me. And that guy is saying, sir, you came only with a headache. I just came to deliver a pizza. Look what happened to me. So, there's my little second carry-home message to you. Keep laughing. Because if you can't laugh at life, if you can't laugh at yourself, if you can't laugh at the things around you, life simply won't be worth it. I'm the sort of guy who laughs loudest when I trip and fall myself. Every time I try something new, and I'm constantly trying something new. I ski, I bungee jump, I skydive, I scuba dive, and every time I make such a total fool of myself. I remember trying skiing, and everybody else, all the other Germans were landing up correctly, and I was always landing up with my leg behind my left ear and my, and after some time, the guys there were actually queuing up to see me fall every time. But I had fun, and I learned to ski eventually. So I think we need to get to laugh at ourselves. Another little thing to tell you guys. When you start, 7,000 years ago in India, when they started symposia, Dr. Chelliah was saying very nicely, do we need symposia? And I must say, I had a very illuminative time with Father Xavier, Mr. Manoharan, with Father Emmanuel, I remember your name, sir, and with Dr. Chelliah. I didn't spend time with Mrs. Revati, but with the four of them, it was terrific spending time. I always spend time the way the Buddha said you must spend time. He said, when you spend time with someone, you spend time as if you'll never see them again. If you get one shot, because there's another carry home. You only get one shot at life. You only have one shot at life. And I would take all you guys back, whether you're doing management, whether you're going to be the head of a paint company, or a stocks and shares company, or a fiber company. It doesn't matter. You get only one shot at life. I would take you back to John Keats, one of my favorite poets. He was studying to be a doctor. And one day he just coughed. And he saw blood in his handkerchief. And he knew his goose was cooked. Because the commonest reason for that was consumption, which we call tuberculosis. And if you had tuberculosis, you invariably died within 12 to 18 months. So here was John Keats and his best friend, Percy Shelley. And Shelley said, what are you going to do? He said, are you going to study medicine? He said, no, because I've got only 18 months left. He took it very clinically. And I'm not going to study medicine. So what did he said, what you going to do? And he said something to him that Shelley subsequently quoted after Keats passed away within the prescribed 18 months. He said, I'm going to live my life like one long, deep breath of cosmic delight. If you had one deep breath, and you said, your last breath, you'd say, okay, this is the world and everything that's in it. Let me enjoy. And you take a nice deep breath and say, man, I want to fill myself. I want to smell every sapling that I ever got. I want to smell every rose that I ever had. Every nice perfume that I ever had. Since my wife isn't here, every girl's hair that I ever buried my nose into. You need to take all of life and boom, take it then and say, boom, I'm going to live my life. If you live life that way, you will live life very, very completely. And I'd like to say I enjoyed spending time with all of you. Dr. Chelliah raised up, do you need symposia? Do you know what a symposium means? It's from Greek. Poso, it came from the Diogenes school. Poso means drink. We say a pos became a dose. The doses of medicines that science is called posology. Sim is together. So at the time of Diogenes, people used to get together and plan together and basically drink their wine together. And drinking together is called symposia. So if you want to have symposia, you go to the Illusions Pub or Zara or Chipstead and you'll find a lot of symposia. They will never die. If you ask me, neither should they die out because life is short. Yeah? And there's one guy who goes to pubs. Gosh, I'm sounding like blinking Russell Peters here. Right? So anyway, 7,000 years ago when they got together before a symposium, our people said, they used to say, Ano batraha kritvo yantu vishvataha. Now, it means, Ano batraha means, kritvo yantu vishvataha. When we get together, let us allow only noble thoughts to enter us from all directions. Amazing if you think about it. 7,000 years ago. This is from the first paragraph of the first chapter of the Rig Veda. And this was Chakravarti Rajagopalachari's favorite quote. If you read his little yellow books, the sort of books that litter the pavements and you walk by, Mahabharata, the Buddha, is written on Jesus. Every book, the first page, it will contain that. It's just something that you youngsters must carry home. Because when we get together, people will tell you a lot of things. You doctors, you're working together. Oh, this fellow had this complication. That fellow had that complication. That guy's run away with his nurse. I said, look, I don't want to know all that. Because I'm only going to allow noble thoughts to come into my life. I don't want to hear negative. This world is full of negative. That day, the other day, I just went through the internet. I typed Jawaharlal Nehru. So I got the first 16 pages. First 14 pages were Jawaharlal Nehru and Edwina Mountbatten. First 14 bloody pages. I mean, I can't believe what's happening to the world. 2 pages that he was prime minister, that his family donated 100 acres people are killing each other, murders every day for land grabbing for 1 ground, 2 grounds somewhere in Tambaram, somebody's slain for that. This man, I'm not a congressman, I'm not talking politics. His family gave away hundreds of acres inside Delhi. Some family gives something. At least if I did that, I would expect my grandchildren or children to be respected by society. He was a prime minister. He did so many major things, dams, peace projects, everything they left off. There's only focus on his letters to Edwina Mountbatten. And that is the world. And you guys have to change this world in every way. External environment and internal environment. Feel noble, feel good, and feel that you have to make a difference to the world. When Manoj came by and invited me, I was asking myself, should I? Because I'm always, day before yesterday morning, I was lecturing in Muscat to a huge crowd of surgeons from Dubai, Saudi, etc. I finished operating and I came in the wee hours of last morning. That makes sense because I usually tend to talk to surgeons, various techniques, etc. But then when Manoj asked, I asked, am I out with my brief here? I'm a surgeon, administrator. Then I thought, you guys, by impacting upon you can impact upon a much larger stratum of society because you will bring to bear these ideals into the DNA of whichever organization you guys are going to go and join. And the greatest battles are not fought with pinched tents. The greatest battles are fought and won inside our minds and inside our hearts. So if we can influence you chaps, then we can really influence society. And I believe, therefore, that you guys must take this seriously. And we should take this seriously, not, sit around and text to each other and say, what are you doing in the evening? Shall you go to Chipstead? I always start my lectures saying, anyone who wants, I tell the universities where I go to give everyone attendance. That's my only request. Give everyone attendance. Whoever wants, go. Sitting inside, I want 100%. Otherwise, they can leave. So I'd like you guys to listen and take this seriously and to take in the noble thoughts. Yeah, someone might say 1 or 2 words or thoughts that are quite not in sync with what you believe. That's okay. That's okay. Everyone can't be synced together. We'll all be like robots. So take in good stuff. So I want to tell you that I didn't prepare. I just wanted to open out my heart and try to change you in a way. The greatest people in the world, Prophet Muhammad, Jesus, Zarathustra, Krishna, what did these guys do? They didn't set up big management units. They talked. They thought first, and then they talked. And whole religions were born. Billions of people followed them simply because of the amazing combination of thought, word, and action. And this can make or break you. That trio of thought, word, and action. So, but VUCA. You talk about a time of volatility and uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. If you think about the world history, most of the times when there was so much of volatility brought in great stuff. If you look at world history, 600 BC to 4 AD was a period of great complexity. A lot of things, changing trends in history. And it gave us a Mahavira in 585 BC. It gave us a Buddha in 500 BC. It gave us a Jesus in 4 AD. If you look at the so-called dark period of European history, the 15th, 13th to 16th, 17th centuries, so-called dark period, it gave us Da Vinci, it gave us Michelangelo, it gave us Botticelli. So, another carry-home message for you. VUCA, in a period of volatility, complexity, ambiguity, and uncertainty, great things can arise. From a period of peace, nothing will happen. Someone said, no, Italy had 500 years of war. It had the warring popes, it had the Borgias, it had the Medicis. And what resulted? Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Botticelli, so many more people, Dante Alighieri. And Switzerland had 500 years of complete peace. They got the cuckoo clock, that's it. So, do you want to make the Mona Lisa or do you want to make a cuckoo clock? And the Chinese always say, I'm sure every management guy knows the standard thing, opportunity and the same crisis and opportunity. It's the same Chinese symbol, you all know that. Because it's only in a crisis that you can get opportunity. It's only in a period when Lumbini major things were happening around Lumbini, a Buddha was born. Major things were happening around Bihar, Magadha, and then Ashoka was born. It needed the war, it needed the blood of Kalinga to create an Ashoka, the greatest greatest ruler that India has ever had. So I think it's good that you guys are in a time of volatility. It's good that you guys are in a time of uncertainty, because this is the time that you can make a difference. So don't think cuckoo clocks. Don't think cuckoo clocks. Right. Next, I believe also that sometimes you have to listen to every word that every person says. I don't know how many of you are listening to the quote from Gitanjali that Father Xavier said. There was a lot of good stuff in that. That there's a Messiah knocks and people think it's the wind. You know, there's so much to everything. I always say there's more knowledge and information between the lines than actually on the lines. I don't know how many of you are into Shakespeare, but if you remember Mark Antony's speech, about Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Everybody knows the first two lines, lend me your ears. And it's like, neither a lender nor a borrower be. Everybody knows that line, but nobody knows the second line after that, which is very, management guys, you must know that. Everyone knows that Shakespeare said, neither a lender nor a borrower be. But the second line is far more important than the first line. He said, neither a lender nor a borrower be, for money that thou lendest oft loseth both itself and friend. And in my life, many times this has happened. You lend to someone, and then you say, the guy's a good guy. He's not able to find the resources to pay you back. And I say, it's okay, Machang, just come, just get together anyway. I'll come and see you, I'll come and see you with the money. And after some time, he doesn't get the money, you've lost the friend, and you lost the money too. Whereas if you say no, if he's a real friend, he'll say, okay, Machang, we'll be friends anyway. So you've not lost the money, money's still in your pocket. And if he's a bad guy and he says, in that case, I won't talk to you, then you didn't have a friend in the first place. You've lost him. And that's what Shakespeare was saying. But too often in life, you go soft and say, oh, maybe I'll just give it to him. And then you lose the friend and you lose the money. So Shakespeare, and similarly, Mark Antony was telling people, how thrice Julius Caesar he offered the crown on the Lupercal to Caesar, and he turned it down. And then he finishes by saying, he keeps on saying, Brutus is an honorable man, Brutus is an honorable man. And then if you read it carefully, there's a sotto voce, an aside that Anthony does. He does and tells his assistant, now cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. So it's a very, very important line. Those days, when they went to war, they would let out 4 or 5 big hounds. Those hounds would run. And at that time, they would shout, havoc. And then the wars would start. And that's how the word havoc came into. There was havoc there means start of a war. They used to use the word havoc. And they would shout havoc, and they're called the dogs of war. And some of you might have read the Frederick Forsyth novel called The Dogs of War. So actually, on the one side, he's just praising Caesar. He's jacking Brutus. And he's actually letting slip the dogs of war. I mean, that if you don't read between the lines, you won't understand that Mark Antony had a very, very clear agenda. He had not come there to praise Caesar. He'd come there to let slip the dogs of war and plant the seeds of suspicion in the people's minds to jack Brutus and his group. So it's very important that we kind of read between the lines and see what's success about. You guys, at the end of the day, everybody wants to be successful. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what, in a VUCA situation, what is success? Today's Friday, right? So tomorrow, Sunday, day after tomorrow, I will be going to see the most successful man, his empire, the most successful man that I've come across in my life. I will take on Sunday evening, I will take a flight to Bangalore and then travel 3-4 hours on a rocky road and go to one of the dirtiest, most stupid places in India. It's in the Rayalaseema district. Rayalaseema itself means Naxalites, Dalit, non-Dalit warfare, female infanticide. Anybody, man, woman, child, or a beast is in danger of a quick death there, if you go there. Quick vertical takeoff, as we say. So, and there is my hero, personal hero, whom I've written about several times on the Facebook. Even yesterday, Dave, I did a video blog on him. He set up something called the Rural Domestic Trust. The Rural Development Trust. His name, I would like every one of you, another little carry-home message for you guys. Please go and Google him and change your own lives. His name is Vincent Ferrer. Father Vincent Ferrer. I'm sure you've heard of him, Father. He's from a place called Valencia in Spain. In my mind, I'm going to define 3 or 4 levels of success, and as managers, future managers, as administrators, as business owners, and as entrepreneurs, you need to define what you think is success. This man made his quick $50 million or $100 million or something, he was playing the exchange commodity, like George Soros, the dollar versus a pound. You can play against everything except the rupee, because rupee is heading only downwards. So he was playing there, and he made many, many millions, and then he got the calling. And he realized that he needed to help people to be truly happy. It's the sort of thing that you read in moral science, catechism books. And he said, another story, old man and his son. But in real life, you find so many old men and their son, and you find the difference that these people make. And then this guy became a Jesuit priest and decided to serve what the people who were the most downtrodden. So he came and served in Nasik, near Mumbai. And unfortunately, local communal tensions ran high, because I think as part of his priesthood, he needed to do X number of conversions. The local people got angry. He was expelled from India. Now, this is another carry-home message for you. Every single guy whom I know personally, who has made it in life and whom I've read about, has been subject to the winds of failure at some point of time. So Father Vincent Ferrer gets, booted out. We'll kill you if you come by here. Then he approaches India again through the church, and he meets up with no one less than Indira Gandhi. So she calls him and says, if really what you say is true, will you work in the worst possible places that we could give you? He says, wherever you want me, I'll be there, because my God wants me there. So at that point of time, the Andhra Pradesh chief minister walks in and says, look, I've got this district, can you please get it off my hands? I don't want to have anything to do with Rayalaseema. It's pulling down the GDP, it's pulling down everything. So much of killing, violence, rape, it's like anybody there who's standing for more than, you can take your choice. You're standing there for more than 30 seconds, you'll either get mugged, killed, or raped. So depending upon your gender and your predilections, you can have it done. That sort of place, So she says, will you go there? And he says, I'll go there. And then I can tell you, he went there in 1969. He died in 2009. This man changed the lives of those people more. I'm going to come to his management and administrative skills in a more complete, profound way than anybody else whom I know. Between 1969 and 2009, he built homes for 30,000 people. He actually participated, he and his family, in building homes. He resurrected the lives and rejuvenated the lives of 100,000 tribals, and did true integration. 2 of his sons actually married into tribal families. I go there and operate. The doctors tell me every now and then you'll find a guy with a stick and a loincloth and say, I'm the Samandhi of Father Vincent Ferrer. In a way, it's true, he's the Samandhi. And then he built 6 dams, 5 hydroelectric projects, and 9 hospitals. And each hospital, if you ask me, is like a tribute to God. Incidentally, 2 years down the line, he was chased, wooed, and he married a journalist who followed him, and he quit the church. But still, everyone calls him Father Vincent Ferrer, because he was a father at one point of time, and in no way was there any drop of his commitment. He didn't belong to the particular church, Valencia church anymore, but he continued his work. He just became Vincent Ferrer. And I'll tell you what, the last time I went by, I saw his photograph. He died in 2009. In one Shivan temple and one Puliyar temple, I saw his photograph. And if you ask me, these are the people who it's worth praying to. If you can fall at the feet of some politician and pray to them, you can fall at the feet of such people and call them God. But this is wrong. What's the point? So in my mind, he, to me, is far more successful. And here I know I'm treading on dangerous ground with you people. Then 10 days ago, I was operating at the Tata Memorial Hospital. It's a fantastic place. And again, I saw 2 people who were very, very tall in management lines. One, I saw Jamshedji Tata's photo, and I saw at any point of time at least 300 people lining up to put flowers and to light incense sticks there, because of what that man has brought, the real value that man has brought to society. And that's another little carry-home message. You try to think in terms of true value rather than just top line, bottom line. I get sick of this top lines and bottom lines. You read between the lines and try to bring value to society. And a short distance from there, I saw the biggest slum in India, Nayakan's Dharavi slum, And from Dharavi slum, just a few kilometers, 2-3 kilometers, is a 30-story building. You're telling the Dharavi guys, you guys do whatever you want, I will live like that. You don't have food to eat, but I have 8 floors for car parking. In my mind, it's a fairly obscene and vulgar exhibition of wealth to the poorest. And God forgive me that me or any of my lineage should ever condescend, could stoop down to do something like that. But these are the guys who are running the big businesses. There's no Business India or Business Today magazine without some 8 pages on what's happening to Reliance. But in my mindscape, I'm not asking you to follow my mindscape, but high up there. Jamshedji Tata is high up there. This man in the high building is fairly low down in my thing, and I would not like to be that. You guys, maybe you can follow their management protocols, but you don't necessarily have to follow their lifestyles. Do you follow what I'm saying? Many people think that when you ape somebody, you ape their hairstyle, their lifestyle, you don't have to do that. Follow some of their administrative skills, make money, but stop, please stop your movement with that. Don't get into that other one. Don't get into this sort of showing off to the Dharavi residents. They were right in the middle of the biggest slum. So the richest guy and the poorest guy live together and tell the whole world, this is how India is. You see, you can see the haves and the have-nots both together. It's something for you guys to think about. Showing obscene wealth. Another important carry-home message for you guys. What do people abroad think of India? I was in London at a conference and chatting with a few people, and they said, look, this is what your Indian worlds can meet now and then. And I'm very happy in mine, each guy to his own. So the 5th largest was taking over the 8th largest company. Okay. At the same point of time, on the same week, the 2nd richest man in the world, Warren Buffett. I like the way how people in Chennai call him Warren Buffet. Anyway, Warren Buffett gave away a large chunk of his income to the foundation that was run by number 1. It's very difficult now. Think about what I said. When you're coming up on the way to the top, you're okay with the guys below, but you will always have a sense of animus towards the guy on top. It's a way of life. The guy who's most handsome in the class, there'll be a guy who's 2nd or 3rd handsome will hate him, And it's a way the world runs, that we automatically envy this green arm of envy. Even if you're getting the stuff from him. That's why Shakespeare said somewhere, envy, he called envy so beautifully. The lessons of life are all over Shakespeare. If you read Shakespeare and Tirukkural, you'll understand life in its complete complexity. Anyway, so he says, envy is the green-eyed monster that doth mocketh the hand that even feedeth it. It doesn't matter if the guy who's the most handsome in class in your number 2 is actually feeding you and helping you, etc. You'll still be envious of him, So anyway, it's automatic that Buffett will be envious of Bill Gates. Yet, he gave away a sizable, huge income and said, look, your foundation is doing a good job. At my age, I don't want to set up a foundation. Take it. And that's the sort of stuff that you should be thinking about. That's the sort of stuff that you should want to do. Not build a 30-story house next to the slum. You know what I mean? Same week, somebody interviews the 5th richest man and asks him, hey, don't you think you should be doing something like this? You just took over the 8th and became even larger. And what does he say? Typical Indian. I have a lot of time for that. I will first get my daughter married and then I will think about it. He actually said this. He said this to, if you ask me, it's a wacko statement to make. And the guys in London say, you guys, what, you spend your entire lives getting your daughters married? And of course, he got his daughter married, he's spending 1.5 billion. I believe that Indians are being looked at for the wrong reasons. I believe you guys, the next group of people should say, look, let's look at ourselves. All this comes only from uncertainty. If you're completely secure and comfortable about yourself, you won't go be doing doolally acts like this that will make people think you're a complete wacko. At least he could have said, yes, I have some plans next year. I'm too young. He said 3 things. I'm too young for it. I'll think about it later. Right now, I have to get my daughter married. These are his 3. I can understand some chap, sir, some very, very junior clerk in Federal Bank who's saying that, his daughter's going to get married. But not the 5th richest man in the world. So that's what is thought about India at this point of time. And we need to change that. And you guys can change that. It's similar in another place. I felt very bad when they said, women are probably safer out in Mogadishu, than they are in Delhi. To me, that's such a sad state of affairs. What Vivekananda stood to the world when he went to Chicago, the League of Religions, the way he stood like this. Everybody asked him, everyone else is standing like this, you're standing like this. He was a boxer, believed in wrestling. And the way he stood, he said, the spirit of your soul, the strength in your soul should come out in the way you stand. And this post, the way you stand like this, is called, standing like this is called abhaya. That means, I'm not afraid. You come, do what you want. And from abhaya, we've slipped down to nirbhaya. That's what's happened to us, What a fall in the eyes of the world. You guys can you can ask, hey, what is this guy blabbering to us, management guys? You make sure that wherever you're working, there's gender consciousness. Make sure, and that does not come from a written paper. It comes from the soul. You must genuinely believe that you would make the place, every street, every road, your workplace, safe for your sister. Because if you ask me, volatility and uncertainty, safety for women is an important factor that we have to start considering. In the last 10, 15 years, with the IT industry growing, the number of, those of you who are, anybody from Bangalore here, you'll find a number of people in Bangalore, girls being attacked, girls being raped, this is part of safety of the workplace and safety, to and from. You guys should ensure that, and I always say in lectures, the first thing that Tamil people must stop doing, is to stop calling girls figures, I can't understand this. Hey, figure pudra, what figure pudra? Your mother's got a figure, your daughter's got a figure, your sister's got a figure. First of all, we must learn to treat women with respect. The latest, let me tell you something about investment. If you want to invest and get really rich, I'm a mad and voracious reader. I have 500 books on my Kindle that I read, and most of these books are written by Nobel Prize winners, because time for me is running out, and I've gone off fiction some years ago. So I believe in inundating my cortex only with ideas and thoughts from people whom so I read, all the time I'm reading Nobel Prize winners. So one of these, and all these Nobel Prize winners are extraordinarily wealthy guys. One of my heroes is a guy called Ray Kurzweil. He became one of the first guys to be part of the invention of computers. He became a millionaire at 15, became a billionaire at 25 or 30, a Nobel Prize winner at 50, and between 50 and he's now 73 years, last 20 years, he's up in a ranch in Indiana, away from the world, quiet all by himself with his dogs and horses. And he writes, if you want to make money, and I'm telling all you guys this, because everybody here wants to make money, invest in 3 things for the future: G, N, and R. At last all the pens are coming out suddenly. Talk about money and it comes out. G is genetics. N is nanotechnology. And R is robotics. Anything that involves these 3 is bound to make large amounts. He's an amazing guy. Those of you, when you're free, please read a book called Singularity by Ray Kurzweil. Kurzweil is one of my heroes. Like Vincent Ferrer's, I spend all the time lost in the thoughts of Vincent Ferrer, what he wrote, what Kurzweil, because what you think is what you will become. Again, from the Chandogya Upanishad. You go on thinking something, you'll become that. You go on thinking Chipstead, you'll go and party at Chipstead and your whole life will be there. You go on thinking Kurzweil, Hawking, David Rock, Jonathan Sear, Buffett, then you may not become them, but you'll start moving in that direction. After all, imitation is the highest form of flattery. So, Kurzweil, incidentally, he's actually his Nobel Prize winning brains he's using to battle age. And between the ages of 52 and 73, he has not even aged one day. He's not even aged one day. He's fighting his own cholesterol, his own triglycerides. A very interesting guy. He's got a process called Transcend. Transcend, how to attack aging, how to prevent yourself from aging. So, what type of weights to do. The guy is 73, 74, and he's pumping iron for 45 minutes to an hour a day. Certainly last few years, I'm kind of copying Kurzweil, and I walk in and say I'm 52, and I can pump iron, I can run 25 kilometers, nobody will believe me. So it's working, at least in those of us who are following. So the point I'm trying to make is, spend time in the company. You guys have the net, which is fantastic. We didn't have the net when we were growing up. So you can, boom, you can just Google what Vivekananda wrote. You can you see what St. Francis of Assisi wrote. You can see what Ray Kurzweil did. And you can bring all those things into your management protocols. One of the most successful managers in recent times is a guy who's written a fabulous book called 7-Day Weekend. Have you heard of that? It's a book called A 7-Day Weekend, in which this man started using new techniques. Basically, it's like ESOPs. He said, why should I, supposing the weekend also, we can work like equivalent to 7 days. We're talking about in Europe and UK and US, they work only 5 days. He said, let me double my companies, or double or triple it, by making use of Saturday and Sunday. We'll do as much sales, as much revenue in these 2 days, as we can do, twice as over, as we can do in the other 5 days. So he planned to double it. He landed up tripling it. And he gave 50% of that to the people who contributed to it. So in other words, from 100%, instead of going 200, it went to 300. 150 he gave off as incentive, and still his company was doing 50% more than it did the previous year, and it had the happiest employees because the employees were making huge bucks. So you read this book called The 7-Day Weekend. He made the employees work a few hours. He said, look, maybe you'll have to work 3-4 hours more, but your salary will double. Are you okay for it? Yep, everyone put their thumbs up, because it was not as if everybody is a winner take it all. You know what's a winner take it all? Sort of zero-sum game. Please read the book, 7-Day Weekend. Read Singularity by Ray Kurzweil. Of course, if you want to remain young all your life, read Transcend by Ray Kurzweil. These are people who have changed their microenvironments. Nobody can get a Nobel Prize, and he's a Nobel Prize, he's a billionaire, and he looks exactly, you can see his photographs he's posted 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and now, no change at all. So certainly, there is something to look forward to. I always tell my kids is to use the internet for all these things to ennoble yourself. At the end of the day, keep getting better, improve yourself. You can use the same internet at the same time, and you spend your time on internet porn from the US. It's a bloody waste of time. You can be much better off. So, 3 ways of success in my rocky road: positive motivation, negative motivation, and self-realization. I talked to you about Vincent Ferrer. In my mind, in a time of volatility, in a time of uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. He didn't know where he was. He didn't, come on, he's a priest, excuse me, father, but he's a priest who didn't even know if he was a priest. I mean, it doesn't get more ambiguous than that, you know. He didn't even know which Jesuito to follow. He was practically out of the church. But he still made such a big difference to the lives of so many people. And he did it because of something called self-realization. Now, all you guys know about Abraham Maslow, Pyramid of Need, yeah? 5th page, 3rd chapter, you know, in your every standard book, and everyone they see that, this Pyramid of Need, go, you know. Sometimes the greatest truths are actually very much close to us, and we just don't see them. Father was quoting from Gitanjali, another quote of mine from Rabindranath Tagore. He said, I searched for peace, and at the end of the day, I can tell you, you guys, at the end of the day, everybody wants peace. I searched for peace, traveled around the world looking for it, came back without peace in my heart. Entered my home and saw, to my surprise, that peace had been sitting on my own easy chair in the darkened corner of my dusty living room. So you travel all around the world finally to find out that peace is there right at your own place in Chinmay Nagar or in Vadaparani or wherever you are. But you have to go to, San Diego, and you have to go to, Sao Paulo or London to find it out and come back. So these are the greatest truths. And sometimes, I spend a quiet evening with family, with my parents, or my kids, and then I think, oh my gosh, this is better than anything else in the world. So please realize that this is sort of typical thing. You'll find one tree, one sunset. The greatest truth or the simplest, and you just walk by. I've stopped walking by. I think, oh man, this is right. It's a nice tree. It's a nice sunset. I wish I were there. Do you stop by at every painting that you go by? Or do you just walk by it? These are the things that you start asking yourself as a manager, as a head of an organization. One question that changed my life, somebody sent something on Facebook to me a few years ago saying, would you like yourself if you met you somewhere else? Just think about it from the other person's standpoint. Life is very complex. And in this world of volatility and uncertainty, you need to say, look, I'm certain about this, that I want to do this. If you can say that, then you have realized. Whenever people join me in the hospital, on the first day when I take them on, I know you guys call it induction. Everything's got a name in management. I'll say something, oh yes, that's induction rounds. I'm helping I'm making my IMRs and my ward boys, we are educating all these people. Yes, CSR, corporate social responsibility. I don't know these terms. I just do these things because my parents brought me up to do that way. I don't know the names, labels. I didn't go through LIBA, So, but I'm saying, I tell them, my team this. I say, boss, every day or every 2 days, you will see somebody dying. I can tell you, there's nothing funny about death. You see death, to see the light going out of somebody's eyes. It always hurts you. And people say, oh, doctor, 30 years you've been a surgeon. You should have seen so many. And I tell them, what you saw Kal Ho Na Ho, no? You girls here. I know every one of you cried for Kal Ho Na Ho because you saw Shah Rukh Khan crying. And then after that, well, before that, when you saw Varve Maya, when you saw Kamal Hassan dying, again you would have cried. You would have cried at that time. So if you see Shah Rukh Khan or Kamal Hassan or somebody, Rajnikant, never. But, Rajnikant's telling people, I'm very angry about all these notes going. I'm just thinking about deleting the entire internet. So anyway, so you will still cry every time you see a sad movie or you read a sad book or you hear a sad story. And so also, when you can cry for something that you know to be false, we're dealing here with kids standing by as a guy dies or his wife sobbing. It's so difficult to not respond to that. Maybe Marakata Marinda, you can maybe you won't respond, but most of us are sensitive and we respond to it. So I say always, you will see a dying man, you will see a dead man, you will see a wife bereft of her husband, or a child bereft of the parent, or even worse, the worst monstrosity is a parent being bereft of the child. I always say the son must bury the father, not the other way around. But in this perverted world that we live in, unfortunately, these things happen. And you will see a man who's crippled with age. Somebody you thought nice, sprightly 10 years ago. You'll see him with diabetes. Father was talking about you can't eat this, you can't diabetes, BP. The guy is completely knocked out. And I tell my team, you're going to see this every day. One man, 500 BC. One man saw this and asked, why are people suffering? Let me look at the causes of people suffering. And the Madhyapada came out. People say, hey, Buddha is a religion. Buddha is not a religion. I've read most of his work, 81 books. I've read 45, 46 of them. The word God does not appear in any of the 81 books that the Buddha wrote. He didn't write, whatever he said, which is his oral work. He never mentioned about God. He said, only look at the cause of suffering and find it out. And he only mentioned about turning the wheel of chakra and the righteous path of life. Be noble, be righteous, righteousness of thought, righteousness of speech, righteousness of action, righteousness of livelihood. That's his eightfold path. So if one man can see the same 5 people, one dying man, dead person, one lady, one widow, one old person, and he became a Buddha. I tell my people, at least a semblance of nobility you should develop when you see people who are suffering. If you don't, bugger off. Excuse my language, but I tell them, don't work with me. I don't have time for people who can't empathize or sympathize with dying people. And you must all learn to look beyond. Unfortunately, I have a completely different, most of the time, when I have a discussion with our managers, it's top line, bottom line, CSR, and I find it so difficult to live in a world where there is, the thread of empathy doesn't run through. I believe, I told people recently, talk of change. Somebody was introducing me, and we ran up a large series of hospitals. That's true. But it's also true, and I'm a congenitally honest, brutally honest guy. It's also true that I took a rather difficult decision and shut down the largest of our flagships. We had 2 flagships, and I shut down the larger of them, the one that was getting us international patients all over, because I believed that it was not consonant with what I wanted to do all my life. Now for a pure management guy with it, oh no, I could have got you some angel investor, I'll get this, I'll get that, I'll do this. I just felt that I didn't have the mindset to become the sort of person that I would need to be in order just to show, okay, another 25, 30 crores per year on my charts. And at that point of time, I had a nice little brush with a man who levels everything, the man who brings things to you in a beautiful perspective. And who's that man? The great leveler is death. And all my life, I've jumped off planes and jumped off buildings and jumped into the deep sea and into martial arts, into anything that involves action, adventure, I'll jump. But then suddenly I realized that I had 5 blocks, and I was possibly a few years away from actually meeting death himself. And I had 5 blocks in my heart, although I was so fit and into sport and exercise because of pressure. I can tell you, it completely changed my thinking. Not that I was a bad guy earlier. I realized, okay, life is finite. In this time that I have, what do I want to do? What am I going to be? And I must tell you guys that I always tell my children this. You learn, please, a clever person is one who learns from his mistakes. An even more clever person is a person who learns from somebody else's mistakes. You don't have to get 5 vessels in your heart before 5 blocks in your vessels before this Jnanodayam comes to you. You can make use of somebody else, and that's what happens in a symposium. And then I got my business priorities right, and I said, look, I don't want to do this. I don't want to run behind investors all the time, go after top lines and bottom. That wasn't my heart. My heart was always in people like Jamshedji Tata and Father Vincent Ferrer. So I made a very, very important business decision when I could have grown and made a 60, 70 crore top line into 150 crore top line when my personal needs are almost nothing. And I was owning 100% of the business. I said, well, I'll knock off 30, 35 crores to take off. Oh, how can you knock off my business? You should be growing. I said, hey, I want to do my own thing. And then I told myself, I'm going to do more stuff. So we were about to come up with a huge super specialty hospital in Africa. So I went to Africa several times, met a couple of country presidents there, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Burundi, and we signed all wonderful, click, signed MOUs and got the land and got everything started. And then I told myself, instead of going there and building a hospital and making money off them, I made a different. I said, I'll go there, I'll still see them, I'll still operate, I'll still come back, but I'll do it all free, provided they just cart me up and down. And I realized that suddenly, my life cleared. I realized that that's what, I was a dove trying to act like a hawk. I can't do that. Don't do that. Some of the nicest guys whom I've met in my life are MBAs. Some of the nicest people, the people running the Rural Development Trust. Last year, they brought in 4,500 crores into Rayalaseema. That's a large sum, whichever way you look at it. And all that 4,500 crores was brought in by a bunch of MBAs, guys like you, working for the Vincent Ferrer Trust. And it's so egalitarian. Everybody lives in the same type of house. The doctors, the MBA people, the Father Vincent Ferrer and his family, he died in 2009. There's an egalitarian sense, and they feel that they're working towards something more noble. And all of them, one fellow was in Nerolac Paints earlier, one person was in GE. It's a big company which pays well. He was at the country head level. And they're doing things, they're bringing huge sums of money. They're making big changes. They're powering on hydroelectric dams, and they're doing projects like that, which they could not have done sitting as a manager in Bombay in some paint company. So realize yourself. I talked about self-realization, positive motivation. You want to fight with your friends. You want to show your guys when you go for your alumni meeting, oh, I'm earning so much. This is my C2C, cost to company. This is my car. This is my place. That's typically like the Three Idiots guy, If you want to be that, that's fine. I'm going to tell you something here. It's not wrong. Mr. Manor was saying there's nothing right or wrong, but the way or good or evil, but it's the way we look at it. There's nothing that's good or evil. If you say killing is bad, Krishna was saying, take this AK-47, whack into them and come back. Then apni pata Bhagavad Gita is bad. If you think violence is bad, Jesus said, throw out the moneylenders and the Jews from the temple. Have them out this minute, I say. Banish them from the grounds of this temple. If you think frustration is bad, Eli, Batshani, he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? He said in Aramaic. There is nothing that's good and bad, the way you look at it. And this is my carry-home message. Don't try to be somebody else. If you are that guy in Three Idiots who wants to have a Ferrari, go for it. If you want to be the monk who sold a Ferrari, you can be that. If you want to be the guy, somebody wrote that, I'm the guy who bought his Ferrari. Fine. Buy that. There's nothing wrong. It's nothing wrong in wanting to own or sell a Ferrari. But if you want to be the guy who wants to buy it, don't pretend to be the guy who wants to sell it. And too often, we live for other people. One of the most intelligent people in the last century was Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he wrote, most people are other people. They'll hear somebody saying something nice on Facebook. They'll go and quote that. And immediately, share, whether they understand or not. Because they want to be that person. Because they want people to look at them and say, oh, it's a nice, clever statement. Don't be somebody else. Your life is too short. If you're staring at bloody 5 blocks in your heart, then you want to be what you want to be. Spend a little time with yourself. Another important carry-home message. You look at the internet, you read books, you talk to friends. It's external. You look outside, you get knowledge. You look inside, you get wisdom. Look within you, see what you really want to do, and go after it. Go after it with a real passion. And we went to, same thing, somebody's talking about, we went to tsunami. and we've been helped out. I can tell you it was a horrible experience. Oh, was it a wonderful experience? Very horrible. The corpses are smelling and you're pulling out the corpses and my team was all vomiting all over the place. I told them, look, why did you come? Sir, many people came because I went and helped in the tsunami. It looks nice in the CV. Don't do that, man. No one's going to read your CV. Do it if you can take that smell. We're taking the smell. If you can take that death, you can take the people weeping, you can take the psychological trauma, breakdown, because next day, within 24 hours, we were there. Fresh. People having lost their children, children being swept away like that. If you can take that, take it. Otherwise, you sit at home, sit here, organize some more vaccinations for us, organize some more funds for us. Make sure you know which wall you want to run up before you put the ladder onto that. If you're a back office person, don't come to Nagapatnam and smell the corpses. Life, you have to smell the roses and you have to smell the corpses as well if you're a doctor. And you must realize very clearly, are you the roses or the corpses person? And it's not wrong to say, boss, I'm not coming with you guys, I can't take it. Don't say anything to anyone just because you have to say it. You guys are going to be heading organizations, because if you're false to yourself, the whole blinking organization will be false. Your whole life will be false. The most important carry, be true to yourself. God has created you as a person, with a personality, with some wants. First of all, sit down and accept those wants. If you think, oh, I want to go with a different girl every day, then don't get married. There's nothing wrong in that. Go with a different girl every day. No problem. I know father might banish me, but if you're not married, it's your life. It's your problem. But don't get married and do that. You can go only the same girl every day. So negative motivation. Nowadays, there's not much of negative motivation. One of my heroes, single man who owned the largest property of land, was not, as many people may answer in Chennai, was not JPR. It was, or one of the politicians here. It was actually, that's right, Genghis Khan. Single man who owned the largest tracts of land was Genghis Khan. He was driven by negative motivation. He saw his father being torn to bits and killed by people whom his father helped. And he realized then that he would show the world. And throughout, if anyone anywhere was disloyal to him, he went after him with a knife. And several times when in his movement in his relationship with the Chinese people, when somebody promised him and they didn't do anything, he would see red. He would stop everything else and turn all his forces towards that guy who betrayed him. And he would rape and pillage and kill and slaughter till the rivers and the streets ran red with blood. All the maximum number of mass suicides in Chinese history were along with coincident to his attacks. Whenever he was supposed to attack an area, all the women would know that they're going to be, pillaged and raped, and all of them would jump off the ramparts and kill themselves. So the largest female mass suicides were from Genghis Khan. But I'm just telling you, he's an example of success. A guy who was a homeless wanderer, owned the largest tracts of land on the planet. I don't think in this world, although there is volatility, there is uncertainty, there is complexity and ambiguity, there are not many people who are driven. I know a few politicians, most of the politicians are good friends of mine. They will say, sir, now the tea ku kashtapadittu sir. Now because they are driven by the need to show all the people. I mean, the tea was, it didn't have any, I don't want you to think I was talking about Modi there. But, well, he is a person who has grown tremendously. So, there is a negative motivation in showing the world. And a lot of my classmates, they came from tiny places in Triplicane, 5-6 families bundled together in a house. Now, naturally, when they post on the Facebook and say, I bought my second plane, I got one Ferrari, I got this, they're responding to the negative motivation of their earlier years, and I can live with that. That's all right. So you must decide in your lives, carry home message time, guys. One, do you want to run by positive motivation? Alexander, classic Alexander the Great. He believed that his mother Olympia was through Achilles. He had Achilles in his. He used to sleep with Achilles' story, the Iliad, the Troy, the Odyssey, in his thingy. It was the Iliad. Odyssey was subsequently, Ulysses went out. The Iliad under his pillow. He believed he was Achilles' descendant. He wore Achilles' armor in one place, the so-called. So he believed and motivated himself. That's a fabulous thing if you can do that. The other thing is negative motivation. But I believe, and this is a very important message you must carry home, better than positive motivation, better than negative motivation is the third route that I talked first about to you. Self-realization. If you realize yourself, then you're not running. In positive motivation, there is a race. Negative motivation, there's a race. In self-realization, There's no race. You're realizing yourself. I know it's at the top of Abraham Maslow, but you don't look at the rest of the pyramid. Just look within yourselves. That's why they say, in the world of science, in the VUCA world, வெளியில பார்க்கிறவன் விஞ்ஞானி, the man who sees the science. உள்ள பார்க்கிறவன் ஞானி. You have to have your wisdom by thinking inside. Spend a little time. Then, so I talked to you guys about letting go. You need to let go. I let go of a flagship hospital, a hospital that made me fairly famous, etc., because I believe that was the best for us. Now, you're on the way up to success. It's quite possible that you're going to have a lot of interpersonal relationships in the future. As a manager in a VUCA system like this, talking about VUCA, there's a joke about buka buka. There's this guy, politician, who goes to a little African town, and he says, I'm going to bring you guys all these things, and they all shout buka buka buka, and then again he says, I'm going to give you guns, and I'm going to give you all this. Again they shout buka buka buka. So he thinks that the whole crowd is with him. So he finishes, again they're all shouting buka buka. Then on the way out, he's getting out, the people are saying, hey, be careful, don't step on the buka buka. So in a period of complexity, it's important to have only one thing. When I think Dr. Chalia was talking about clarity of vision. All of us lacked clarity of vision when we finished in school. I was a state ranker for Don Bosco. Oh, you get your paper, your photo in the paper. Don Bosco boy gets state rank. And then so you get into Loyola. And then automatically, all of us went either into medicine or engineering. And the guys who wanted to hang out a little bit and enjoy did commerce. That's all. There's only 3. There was no, the lucky guys, And I remember at my valedictorian thing, we went back to Don Bosco, and I said, and actually we had a very illustrious batch. One of my friends is a superstar. One of my batchmates is a superstar in Telugu, Venkatesh. We're batchmates. And then a few years, and then another batchmate of mine was Mukesh Ambani's brother-in-law, head of Reliance Infocom, Shyam Kothari. We're batchmates. The head of Galada Pharmaceuticals, Vimal Galada, is my batchmate, and so on and so forth. So Kalanadi Maranol 3 years behind us, and Vishwanathan Anand 6 years behind us. So I remember telling, you must thank us, and now many of the top doctors, physicians, surgeons, engineers, about in the first 20, I think 17 or 18 went into IIT Chennai. Those days was standard IIT Chennai, MEC. And then from after IIT, IIM Ahmedabad. And after IIT IIM, either they take over something or they push off to the US. Standard. And only 2 of us went into, the guys who pulled the short straw went into MBBS. Anyways, I remember saying this in school, saying you must thank us, the top half, because we are going to become the big lawyers, engineers, doctors. And you must thank the bottom half because they're going to be employing us, And you guys belong to, that way, the commerce part. Now you guys have gotten smarter. The top half of people are going into the management kind of area. Now, there's something that you need to deal with. You need to deal with automation. It's going to be a big problem for anyone running any company in the future. And again, as a chap who's wired with the Nobel Prize winners, I'll tell you, automation and artificial intelligence are going to change a lot of things. For example, did you know that there are 13,000 cars have been driving for the last 5 years without drivers? Google's driverless cars have been driving around California, and not even one incident has been reported, not even one accident. So when that reaches a critical time, the drivers will go out of business, and it's fantastic. You must study, although you are not in the technical line, please spend a little time studying what technology is going to do, because technology is going to impact upon you. More and more companies are coming, managerless companies, that are being driven by algorithms. They're saying, why do you need a manager? If there is a fault, put the whole thing as an algorithm. If this happens, this can be A, B, or C. If it's A, do this. If it's B, do this. C, do this. Of course, the manager is the guy who's pushing the buttons, at least on the computer. So there will be managers, but it's going to impact the number of managerial staff that we're going to have in the future. It's like ATMs, where banks were planning so many more counters with people sitting. You have ATMs, and the ATMs have replaced people. There's something called AI, is one of my artificial intelligence. If you read about artificial intelligence, the owners of Google, you must always see where the rich people are putting their money in. That's the future, correct? All the money, like most husbands, all the money that Brin and Page are making in Google is being handed over quietly to their wives, the way all of us do, okay? And their wives are you all know that? Their wives set up all the investment. Sergey Brin and Larry Page. Their wives manage all the money that comes out from Google. You just track. This is what Ray Kurzweil has written. You track where these people are putting their money in. That's the future. These guys are making the money from Google, but all that money is going into nano, into robotics, and into genetics. Because this is the future. If you start a company that has anything to do with genes, it's the IT boom of the future. I'm going to give you these 3 ideas that will significantly impact your life, and I'll tell you why. So why can't these people put it into more search engines? They're not. They're taking the money out from there and putting it into artificial intelligence. Because if driverless cars, now 5 years they've proved, 13,000 cars for 5 years without a single incident. You can't drive from Loyola College to Vivekananda College without 2 accidents on the way. Or 2 drivers saying Kabodi and walking by, auto guys. You can't do that, There's this, So what happens is, it's all about artificial intelligence and embedded circuits. I spend a lot of my spare time in any little spare time that I have in labs where we study artificial intelligence and embedded circuits. It's about anything which is a recurrent pattern. See, for example, if you do anything recurrently, there's one part of your brain called the basal ganglia. They will take it on, and you will be running on the so-called basal ganglia level, not on your cortex level. So when you drive, it's a series of complex movements. Please listen to me, because this is neuroscience. You should be able to use neuroscience, physics, chemistry, geology, genetics in your business. That's a smart person. So the basal ganglia take over driving, and then you can talk to somebody from your cortex. So increasingly they're thinking, why can't you make managerial algorithms? You make them spinal circuits by introducing embedded circuits. I'll tell you a simple example. You're managing 50 drivers or 13,000 drivers. It requires a huge managerial network for like fast track. Okay? So what they have is they have a central server. I'm just giving an example of automation in management, which you've got to deal with. You've got to deal with a central server which connects these 13,000 cars, which knows exactly. Hey, Kubsami, you don't have to ask that. The server knows exactly through GPS. Again, you're using technology. So don't go away from technology. Darwin said, it's not the fittest of the species, or the strongest of the species, or the fastest of the species that survived, but the species that adapted. And technically, adapting means altering your internals according to the externals that you're in. Adapting in a suda coat, or if there's an AC becomes more, you kind of put your coat on. That's adapting in a very simple sense. You must learn to adapt. And you guys, you managers, entrepreneurs of the future, you need to adapt to technology. So here we go. I'm going to draw a parallel. India fast track, some 20 managers managing some 1,000 workers. They're one server, managing 13,000 robots. The human element is boom, out. Human got the robot, or as Raji says, robo. Human got the robot. Now robots are manufacturing robots. It's all the robots that are being manufactured. You don't find like Rajini sitting with a screwdriver and making a robot, in the movie. They found particularly funny. You don't make robots with screwdrivers, but they'll always show them putting a panel there and screw it in place. Robots are now making the robots. It's like you take a drink. First the man takes a drink, then the drink inside him, that will take another drink. And finally the drink will take the man. So like that, the machines make machines better than humans can make machines. Think about it, because this statement is going to change your future. A human makes a machine. Then he makes a machine that can make a machine. The first human make that injection molding machine to make, say, a plastic cap, supposing you're a plastic entrepreneur. Then he makes a molding machine that can make multiple plastic caps better than you or I. Maybe one Da Vinci or Michelangelo can make a better job of it than you or I. But can you have 10,000 Michelangelos working for you making plastic caps? You can't. But a molding machine can do a repetitive basal ganglia type of job better than a human being can. So here you have like a fast track, 13,000 people, one big server. The server knows through GPS exactly split-second position of the 13,000 drivers. I'm just equating that industry to whichever industry that you're going to be participating in. Even if there is a single oil spill on the road and one wheel shifts a little bit, that oil spill is reported by a feedback system through GPS to the other 12,999 cars. So when the other 12,999 automated cars come there, they'll automatically turn to avoid the oil spill. If there is a traffic block, this traffic block by a feedback system is given so that the other cars in that area, everybody is informed. So automatically they will take alternative routes on their GPS and travel. Can you imagine Kupsami or Kansami, hey, machi inga block aayirige, andha pakam maalinga puram maatittu irukke. Because humans can only interface that much. With machines you can have multiplicity of. So those among you that I see who will survive, succeed, and become, those of you who are going to head major businesses, you are going to be heading them. You're going to be technologically dependent. You don't have to go and make the circuit yourself, but be aware of the advantages and the limitations of technology. So once the driverless cars come in, Google's driverless cars, completely driven by the wives of the founders of Google, in that area, everybody can drink as long as they want. You sit in a driverless car because that robot doesn't drink. You just put some oil into it, people will get drunk and they'll sit in the car and they'll happily go back there. There's just one small advantage for the bar goers. But can you imagine the accidents become zero? They have the whole thing on radar. Even at night, if there's fog, it's on radar. It'll just brake automatically. Yes, there'll be one or two small errors, but unfortunately, carry home message for you. Mechanical jobs can be done by machines or mechanical components better than by you or by me. There's no instrument fatigue. We use robots for surgery. And even the most skilled, we always, Tamashki, we'll fight against a robot and see how well we can do compared to how it can do. And many of us can do as well as it can do. But there are human limitations. For example, I can stitch like this, but my wrist can only go up to here and here. So I have a 270-degree swerve. But that's got a pivotal axis. It goes exactly 360 degrees. Can you imagine my hand going all the way around like this? It goes 360, then it moves 1 millimeter, 360, moves 1 millimeter, 360, zoop, 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 zoop. And I'm saying, I'm as good as the robot, I'm as good as the robot, and I'm struggling, and somehow I can do it. But I can't reproduce, oh, I can reproduce. I can't duplicate this, I can't duplicate this over and over again. It is a very important carry home point for you guys, because those of you who are going to invest in companies, please, either you get technologically better or you put your money, that's what these people are doing. Put your money into companies that will do robotics. One last word about genetics. The future is genes. Here I would like to, Manoj, before you kick me off stage, another 5 minutes? Okay. I've not come here to tell you guys. I've just come here to give you guys questions. Go back, ask yourself those questions, and all the answers are within you. I'll tell you the importance of investing in genetics for the future. What I learned, I spent a little time with I'd gone for some award function to Delhi. I was fortunate to get it from our ex-president Abdul Kalam. And along with him, I met a person who was one of the leaders of the Genome Project. You know whose gene, this is again some interesting historical stuff for you, what's happening now. Historic stuff for you. You know whose genes they first opened out? Watson, the man who, Watson and Crick are the two guys who got the entire DNA, the strand, they made the double helix. And they took a piece of Watson's tissues, and from Watson's tissues, they unraveled the beauty of the genes which come. The Genome Project was out. Interestingly, in a little aside, I must tell you that you know how Watson and Crick hit upon the double stranded of DNA. They hit upon it with the help of a very, very important truth-discovering chemical called lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD. These guys are on LSD, these two scientists, and they were sitting in front of the staircase. Hey, Macha, the staircase is going round and round. It's the truth. It's written in Watson's autobiography. He found the staircase going round and round. And he's telling Crick, and because Crick is still alive, Watson is dead, he said, hey, it's going round and round. And next morning they said, hey, that was going round and round, let's sit down together. And lo and behold. So I always talk at scientific meetings and say, well, get drunk and discover great truths. But I'm a teetotaler myself, but I'm just telling you. So basically, they found out Watson's gene. For the ladies here, they found something beautiful. This theory of creation versus evolution, what happens really. We now know that Eve was black. We know it for a fact. So every time you guys here, if I see you chaps in the matrimonial column, wanted, fair, Christian, not our girl. Fair. What is this fair about? Eve was black, for God's sake. We know that chromosomes, amazing. they studied as part of the Genome Project. They studied the whites, they studied us browns, they studied the yellows, the Oriental people, and they studied the blacks. And the older your genetic material, the more the number of mutations or changes in it, okay? And they found, therefore, the maximum number of mutations were in the blacks. Less number in the browns. A little less than that in the yellows. And the latest are whites. Therefore, whatever these guys might say, whatever they might say about Eminem, the white guys have actually come from the black guys. And that's one. Two, is it really true that there was an Adam and Eve? Is it true that we all came from one, or did God say, boom, I want 50 million Americans, 50 million this thing, and 300 million Chinese? You know, did God say that, you know? Someone said, no, even if your weekend is very short, I put in my face, my gosh, my weekend's getting short. I think weekends are nowadays being made in China, lasting for very short periods of time. So, they looked at, there's something called, when a sperm meets an egg, there's something called mitochondrial DNA for the egg, and mitochondrial DNA is the battery of the sperm. It leaves that mitochondrial DNA in its tail and goes inside. In other words, all the mitochondrial DNA of the child is from the mother. So these guys at the Genome Project sitting in Washington, they were saying, you know, suddenly we hit upon this, and we said, let's study the mitochondrial DNA from China, from Africa, from, you know, all over the place. And they found to their surprise that all the races are carrying the same identical mitochondrial DNA. That means all their mothers are from one common mother. So one of the offshoots of the Genome Project was that Eve, there was definitely an Eve. There's definitely one lady from everything started. Undoubtedly, Genome Project, science. And she was black. So I think there's a beautiful message in that we must respect womanhood. We must respect womanhood irrespective of colors. You know, if you can look past colors, if you can look past that, there's so much you can get. And this is one example of, so with the genetics growing, now we talk about investments. You guys are interested in moolah. Okay, I'll tell you. The genetics industry has grown 45 times in the last 5 years. It's overall, the bandwidth has grown so much. The amount of investment growing that is not tripling, quadrupling, it's huge amounts there. I'll tell you why. You can actually soon, the cost of finding somebody's complete genes, no? For Watson's gene, the entire cost for it was $32 billion US, $32 billion project. Already, in the last 10 years, the cost of finding someone's complete genetic profile has come down to $3,000. This is back to Moore's law. You all know about Moore's law? Chairman of Intel, Gordon Moore, he said the cost of a byte will keep on coming down geometrically. The cost, if you look at 1 gigabyte information, in 1979, the cost of 1 gigabyte of information was $300,000. Now the cost of 1 gigabyte of information is 8 cents in the US. 8 cents, 300,000. There's a huge change happening. So you guys, latch on to that change. That so much of money is now going into genetics. Soon we'll be able to say, I always say, tell people, instead of saying, 8 sani irukku, 10 budan irukku, 7 irukku, don't look at all the 8 sani, 10 sani. Instead of matching, you know, horoscopes, you match genetic horoscopes. It will cost much less, and you'll know exactly the children, you won't get a child like this, you know what I mean? You can see, you can get in 5-10 years it will be available. And that will require some tools. Those tools will require huge scientific companies. You can invest in those companies or create those companies. Soon, you'll be able to know, my genetics are showing this. Therefore, if I get a cold, I'll probably get a pneumonia. When I become 65, the pneumonia might kill me. Therefore, these are the people you must treat very aggressively with the cold. You know, people keep on, hey, doctor, simply at all, you give medicines. These are the people you must treat aggressively. 2 guys have a burst appendix. 1 drops down dead. 1 survives. We now know it depends on how their chemicals are released. And we know those chemicals are based on the genes. So if I've got my complete genetic makeup as your boss, if I have my appendix burst, please knock me out immediately, operate upon me. You can match, you go into gene therapy and correct so many diseases that used to kill people earlier. I tell you, this is the future. Because ultimately, it's back to the Bible, back to the Quran, back to the Talmud, back to the Torah, back to the Bhagavad Gita. Look inside. You keep on looking inside, you'll finally look at the gene sitting there, you know, and it's down to genetics. I'm going to wind up by telling you guys this. Whatever you do, make sure that you realize yourself. If that's the greatest lesson that you must. Don't go by, if you ask me, don't go by positive motivation. Don't go by negative motivation. Go by self-realization. That is the best road to success. Message number 2, if you need to let go, if you're happier in a smaller company, but that's why your heart is taking you, do that. Don't simply be part, oh, I'm part of an MNC, I'm part of an MNC. I need to have this thing hanging around my neck and walking around in a tidal park, you know. Most people live lives of quiet desperation. You live your life completely. Celebrate every minute of your life. If you feel like jumping off a building, jump and make sure you have a chute attached to it, you know what I mean? Live your lives completely. Go with self-realization. Choose what you want to do. And you can do all that and still you can make big bucks by investing in the right places. Try to link your minds up and brains up to Nobel Prize winning writers. You know, read Abdul Kalam rather than Jack Higgins. You know what I mean? You read Ray Kurzweil, read Stephen Hawking, read David Rock, read Yamaguchi, the guy who got the Nobel Prize for stem cells. In the future, through genetics, you can just walk in, I swear to God, in the Vivek Padathila vara mari, chutney ke vantha na kidney edutitaanga solrena, adu mari ella agama. That will not happen in the future. You can walk in, give a few cells and say, boss, please give me a kidney, I'll come and collect it in 2-3 days' time. You can come and collect your kidney. It's going to happen. And it's not going to take 5,000 years. It's part of our hospital's research. We have got a Lifeline Institute of Regenerative Medicine, and we're linked up to Loyola, Father, to your biotechnology. We've got a bunch of your people with us. We've got a heart cell. We've created a heart cell that's pumping by itself, quietly. It's been alive for quite some time now. We're working on paralysis. A lot more things will be treated not at the body level, not even at the tissue level, but at the cellular and the molecular level. In business, in administration, in medicine, even in politics, decisions will start becoming internalized. That's the future. If you look at the Nobel Prizes, they used to give Nobel Prize for finding out some hydroelectric thing or some. It's all coming down. Now it's for stem cell. Kuti is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Finding out some chemical that comes out at 3:30 in the morning and goes back at 3:25 and 3:45. It's for chemicals. It's for tiny things. So internalization of, so please invest in genetics, or invest in companies that are investing in genetics, or run companies that are investing in genetics, in nanotech and in robotics, and your growth, your top line will be growing, but make sure that you don't get too stressed out, do what you want to do. Otherwise, like your top line, your hairline also will be going up, So it's very important that you do what you want to do and be true to yourself. I'd like to finish up with a quote again from Shakespeare. Beautiful. Hamlet, in Hamlet, Polonius is advising his son Laertes before he goes off to war. He says, these few precepts, I can only tell you 7-8 lines because you're going to war. Please remember these. And it was written in the 16th century. It is as applicable today in 2013 as it was in the 16th century. In that also he talks about neither a borrower nor a lender be. Somehow posterity made it lender nor a borrower. He says neither a borrower nor a lender be. He says, you dress like the way the Greeks and the Italians dress, because he says, apparel maketh half a man. People look at the cover, unfortunately, than the book itself. Most people have these huge bookcases, full Bhagavad Gita will be there, Mahabharata will be there, everything. Have you read it? Planning to, boss. Planning. 20 years later, have you read it? All these books, everybody will have a brief history of time. A brief history of a brief history of time. Wings of Fire. The nice books are divided into books that you like to read, like Archie's Jughead, and books that you like to be seen with, like Wings of Fire. So you should try to merge the two together. I've always taught my children this. I've said, if the world looks at it, there are 3 ways. There are 3 Rajkumars. There are 3 Father Xaviers. 1 is what I think I am. 2 is what the world thinks I am. And 3 is what I really am. So there are 3. And at the peak of life, if the 3 can be brought together as one, so what I think is really what I am, and what you think of me is also what I am, then in my mind, that is the ultimate LIBA definition of success, In whatever, however troubled the times are around, if we can fuse these 3 separate things together and make it from a pantheon into one. So Shakespeare I'll end up by saying, he says, and this above all, he tells him 5-6 things. You dress properly, the friends that you have, tested and tried by time. Friend means not, Machan, come, let's go for a drink. That's not a friend. Friend is somebody whom you have a problem with, you discuss issues. Tested and tried by time. Friends that you have, bind them to thy soul with hoops of steel. He says. And he ends by saying, and this above all, because he says that's the most important thing. And this, above all, to thine own self be true. To thine own self be true. For then shall it follow, like the night followeth the day. So it's such a truth that like the way the night follows the day, if you're true to yourself, it will follow that thou shall not be false to any other man. You can't say lies to somebody if you don't say lies to yourself. So you should feel comfortable. You get up in the middle of the night, you're going to the bathroom to take a leak, you look at your face in the mirror, you shouldn't be angry or shouldn't be unhappy with what you see in the mirror. And that, at the end of my life, is the definition of success. That you are comfortable with what you see in the mirror. That you can look, at least the face part. The rest of it, you might think that you're carrying 50 kilograms or whatever. But you should be comfortable about what you see. And so beautifully, 3 kilometers from here, in the 2nd century AD, Thiruvalur wrote, Manathukan Masilanathan, Anithukan Agala Neera Pira. If you can keep your mind and heart, Manathukan Masilan, without mas, without guile, if you can live like that, after that nothing else matters. Anithukan Agala Neera Pira. Good luck, God bless, have a wonderful day.